demoralization of the innkeeper and his staff. They scrambled up mountains, swam in the lake, and sunbathed on every available slope. When they were indoors, they filled the bar, shouted against the wireless, and tipped for each trifling service. The proprietor beamed at them over his choked cash register, and the smiling waiters gave them preferential treatment, to the legitimate annoyance of the other English guests. To these 6 persons, Iris appeared just one of her crowd, and a typical semi-society girl, vain, selfish, and useless. Naturally, they had no knowledge of redeeming points, a generosity which made her accept the bill as a matter of course when she lunched with her friends, and a real compassion for such cases of hardship which were clamped down under her eyes. But while she was only vaguely conscious of fugitive moments of discontent and self-contempt, she was aware of a fastidious streak which kept her aloof from any tendency to saturnalia. On this holiday, she heard Pan's pipes, but had no experience of the kick of his hairy hindquarters. Soon the slack convention of the crowd had been relaxed. They grew brown, they drank and were merry, while matrimonial boundaries became pleasantly blurred. Surrounded by a mixed bag of vague married couples, it was a sharp shock to Iris when one of the women, Olga, suddenly developed a belated sense of property and accused her of stealing a husband. Besides the unpleasantness of the scene, her sense of justice was outraged. She had merely tolerated a neglected male who seemed a spare part in the dislocated domestic machine. It was not her fault that he had lost his head. To make matters worse, at this crisis, she failed to notice any signs of real loyalty among her friends, who had plainly enjoyed the excitement. Therefore, to ease the tension, she decided not to travel back to England with the party, but to stay on for 2 days longer, alone. She was still feeling sore on the following day when she accompanied the crowd to the little primitive railway station. They had already reacted to the prospect of a return to civilization. They wore fashionable clothes again, and were roughly sorted into legitimate couples as a natural sequence to the identification of suitcases and reservations. The train was going to Trieste, which was definitely on the map. It was packed with tourists who were also going back to pavements and lampposts. Forgetful of hillside and starlight, the crowd responded to the general noise and bustle. It seemed to recapture its old loyalty as it clustered around Iris. "Sure you won't be bored, darling? Change your mind and hop on. You've simply got to come." As the whistle was blown, they tried to pull her into their carriage, just as she was, in shorts and nailed boots, and with a brown glaze of sunburn on her unpowdered face. She fought like a boxing kangaroo to break free, and only succeeded in jumping down as the platform was beginning to slide past the window. Laughing and panting from the struggle, she stood and waved after the receding train until it disappeared round the bend of the gorge. She felt almost guilty as she realised her relief at parting from her friends. But although the holiday had been a success, she had drawn her pleasure chiefly from primeval sources: sun, water, and mountain breeze. Steeped in nature, she had vaguely resented the human intrusion. They had all been together too closely and too intimately. At times she had been conscious of jarring notes: a woman's high, thin laugh, the tubby outline of a man's body poised to dive, a continual flippant appeal to "my God." It was true that while she had grown critical of her friends, she had floated with the current. Like the others, she had raved of marvellous scenery, while she accepted it as a matter of course. It was a natural sequence that, when one travelled off the map, the landscape improved automatically as the standard of sanitation lapsed. At last, she was alone with the mountains and the silence. Below her lay a grass-green lake, sparkling with diamond reflections of the sun.